tested.
Testing. Here we go. This is Shane here with Prepper Talk Radio, and our guest here, Alma from Vital Domes. Thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
So let me give you a bit of a roundup of what's going on here this morning. Scott was, as he was out last week, and his flight got delayed. He was going to be here, but his flight got delayed and will not show up until about an hour after the show ends. So I appreciate Alma greatly for coming in here and sitting down with me and talking about their topic today. But let me get through all the obligatories first. Of course, we are brought to you by Survival Medical, survival-medical.com, the only first aid kits designed for long-term storage. These are fantastic. And you can go and see them in the Provo Sam's Club right now. They'll be there for a few more days. And starting on Thursday, they will be in the South Jordan Sam's Club. So go check them out there as well. And as you kind of know, Survival Medical is taking the tour of Utah right now through the different Sam's Clubs. And we'd really appreciate it if you'd support them. They're fantastic products. But today, so much we could talk about today. And one thing I wanted to, I guess, first do is talk to Alma here first. We wanted to talk about, we've had Alma on before talking about Vital Domes and what he does, and he's been out to PrepperCon, the last 2 years. And I wanted to ask Alma, where did this all start? And this is going to kind of lead us into our conversation today, what we've chosen to talk about. And we certainly appreciate you joining us today and listening to us and contributing to our conversation. Because that's really where I learn the most personally, is when I hear from you callers and we have a great discussion. That's my favorite part about our show, is when you call in, and not just me talking the whole time, or Scott or whatever. There's nothing fun about that. So Alma, tell me about how you got started doing Vital Domes, maybe a little bit of your history, and I think that'll lead us perfectly into our topic.
No, I think that sounds great. I appreciate it. I'm not going to go too deep into how we ended up doing it, but my wife and I, for lack of a better word, we felt this is what we were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we did it. And, going on with our topic that we haven't announced yet,
mm-hmm.
My parents instilled in me a belief that we can learn how to do anything. That if I put my mind to it, I can do it. I really struggled in school. I don't know how other people are in school. I'm not one of those that can sit in the chair, listen to the teacher, and be able to regurgitate it 20 years later. I don't learn that way. And I'm really hands-on, really trying to figure things out. I'm really hands-on. My dad, I wanted to build a website years ago, and my dad handed me the programming books because he's a software developer, or was through his career. Mm-hmm. Now they're on a mission. But he handed me the books and said, why don't you learn how to do this? And I sat down for 9 months and tried to figure out software. And when I got stuck, I'd sit down with my dad, and he'd explain a concept. And I learned how to learn. I got off my mission, picked up a guitar, and I wanted to learn how to play guitar. Kind of the same thing. And actually, guitar taught me how to learn, more than actually going to school.
Okay,
and I learned
that.
how to learn.
Yeah.
So when we decided to do a tent, we really decided to build our own dome for ourselves. So I got on YouTube and started studying out machines, sewing machines. I got on YouTube so I could see how people used them. Mm-hmm. Got on the internet, studied them out, and I actually learned how to sew on YouTube. And then I bought my machine. I assembled it. They sent them in a box. You assemble the thing, and
that's how you got started.
That's how we got
started. I think
started.
there's some great topics there. I started learning how to learning piano.
Oh.
So yeah, my mother, she learned piano from her mother, and she thought it was imperative that we learn piano. And she was, I don't want to use the word tyrant, but she was, you will sit down and you will practice. And I'm grateful because when you're a kid, you don't know how to learn.
No.
And it was a great learning process, and it eventually got to the point, my mom and I were just talking about this the other day, that, okay, Shane, if you want to quit, you have to do that yourself. You have to tell your teacher, I'm going to quit. And of course, I never had the gumption to do that. And I think deep down I really appreciated, what skills that gave me. That, like you say, it gave me the ability to actually learn, and not just absorb like a sponge. You're actually doing something active.
Well, and I think along with that, as soon as you do start to learn something like an instrument, For me, guitar. I picked up a guitar. Guitar is one of those things that once your hand starts getting a little more comfortable on the fretboard, all of a sudden you can start playing chords. And 3 main chords play 90% of the music you hear on the radio.
True, true.
And so, maybe 4 chords. But you can start getting good really fast, and at least acceptably good.
Making some progress so that you see that, oh, wow, I can actually make music. I can do something. I can see some progress with this with very little effort.
And I think that instills a greater belief.
Absolutely.
I can do this. And that's how it was with Vital Domes. I bought the sewing machine. My stitching was horrible. I was on YouTube learning how to attach zippers and doing a fold over, and I was learning all these new terms. And when I found, just as with software, there's a whole language. It's not the actual programming language, but there's a language surrounding software. Well, in manufacturing materials, like fabrics and things like that, there's a whole language associated with it. And if you don't become acquainted with that language, you have no clue what they're talking about.
Right, yep.
And so I tried to digest as much as I could. It took me, we did our first dome. I hand welded it together because we use a fabric that you heat weld together. And I bought a little hand welder. I hand welded our very first one together, and it took me almost an entire week to do it. And it was horrible. And we took it that was the one we've introduced at PrepperCon.
Oh, okay.
And I was stunned. We made sales off of that.
So were your prototypes made from? You stitched them together. You used a sewing machine.
Well, we actually heat welded it and stitched in all the
Windows
zippers
and
right, things like that.
And it's interesting that you bring that up. One of my first jobs was I learned how to sew. I worked at a place where they make awnings. Actually, I would love to come up and live up in your neck of the woods, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But one of my first jobs was working at an awning company, and I did resews, and I was 15, 16. I did resews on trampolines. So I'd sit in front of this 50-year-old faff industrial sewing machine and resew, webbing and all the attachments there for how the tramp attaches to the springs on tramp, and I would just sit there and do that, and occasionally I would get to sew other things. So what we're talking about today, this is a perfect lead into it. What we're talking about today is a little article I wrote a couple years ago on my blog, and it's entitled "The 17 Skills I Want My Kids to Learn." So that's what I want to talk about today: is skills, actual either physical skills or life skills that I'm trying to teach my kids as we go along in life. And so my first item on this list is sewing. That's one of the first things I put on this list is to sew. And so we talk about, sewing. And so I learned how to sew very young. I don't know, that's very young. Maybe it's very young nowadays, but maybe back in the early 1900s, you learned how to sew when you're 4,
I don't know. I was 41 when I learned how to sew. Well,
okay.
40. I was 40
okay.
when I learned how to sew. So that's, for me, that's definitely young.
Yeah.
Compared to my experience.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so
now I can sew much better back than I did back then. I mean, we brought in other people, and so I just have to clarify. It's not this crazy stitch like it was. Everything is awesome now. I mean, this gentleman named Bob Zeller came to our company about a year. It's been about a year, and Bob is just unreal. I mean, everything that he does, he builds specific folders and all sorts of things. And watching him, on the same topic, watching him, you got to come up and meet Bob. Everything that he puts his mind to, he'll sit and he'll look at it, he'll scratch his head, and he's got 40 years experience behind him, but he'll scratch his head and he'll look at it, and then he'll create something absolutely brilliant. I mean, and he truly embodies the belief that he can do anything.
Learning skills takes time. We had a call on line 3. Sorry I missed you. Feel free to go ahead and call back. But yeah, like you're saying, he's been doing this for a long time, and just with with me with sewing. Okay, let's hear line 3. Let me go ahead and pick this up. Caller, what's your name? Oh, sorry. Let me turn you on here. Caller, go ahead. What was your name? Are you there? Hello? Well, you're not there. Sorry I missed you. All right, well, give us a try back here. I'm not picking you up here. So, distractions. Sorry about that. Anyway, so back to sewing. It takes any skill takes time to practice. So learning the skills young is going to give them time to develop confidence, and so that's why I wanted to talk about teaching our kids these skills. And I mean, even when you're 41, if you're 41 and you don't know how to sew, then give it a try. Okay, here's our caller again. Let's give this a try. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. What's your name?
Andre.
Hey, Andre. Thanks for calling again.
Yeah, somebody ought to do something to that Hillary Clinton. She needs to be arrested for doing these crimes.
Yes, she does. Did you have a comment about life skills or skills about sewing or anything like that?
Well, people better be good at it so we won't get holes in our clothes, and we can make good ones, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your call, and maybe next week we'll talk a little bit more about Hillary Clinton. So, thank you.
Yeah, it's just our nation's going to hell, and we need some real pride here.
And I'm glad you bring that up because those who are listening now may not be aware, and we want to bring that up to everybody, and that everyone's opinion is a little bit different, and honestly, it's hard for me to even fathom that how she's even still in the race. But we won't go there any further. We'll get back to our topic here. But so
she's just developed a different skill set than what we're
okay.
talking
There
about.
we go. There we go. She's been working on her skill set her entire
was that
life.
politically correct,
That was that was a perfect tie-in, is what it was.
There we go.
It was perfect and politically correct as well. All right, another call on line 3. Let's roll the dice here and see what we get. Hello, what's your name?
Oh, yeah, we just got cut off. I know, it's like it makes you don't even want to live anymore, huh? All this injustice.
Actually, I was talking with Paul just before we came in the studio, and we're thinking, okay, tell me where that nuke's going to hit, and I'll be right there. I will make my way there, and just put me out of my misery.
Yeah, because, that's the only thing that's going to save you from this cruel world.
Yeah, no, you may very well be right. Did you have any other comments, Andre, before we move on?
No, it's just that it just makes you not want to live anymore because of all the injustice that's going on.
Well, hang in there, Andre. It will turn better. It may be after the collapse. It will be after the collapse, but it will get better. So get prepared, and that's why we're here, to help you guys get prepared, to get knowledgeable, and so that we can make it through the collapse and come out the other side and experience a truly better world.
Yeah,
that's what
I
we're
wish
looking for.
something would happen because it's been 44 years and this sucks.
Yep.
Totally.
Yep. I'm 44, and I'm barely realizing in my last decade of my life what awful condition we're in, and so that's why Prepper Talk Radio is here to help you guys, hopefully give you some hope, and some
we need
skills.
to get rid of all this communism that started it. That was the reason why it's this way. We need to stop this.
Absolutely.
For our real Constitution being in place. Oh, and that our Constitution is supposed to work. Is that why all these wrong things from Hillary Clinton and everything's allowed to happen, and our broken borders aren't protected, and our police are shooting people?
I think Paul's show before us is probably he's much more adept at talking to these topics than I am. So appreciate your call, and call us anytime.
All right, bro. I'll
Thanks,
catch
Andre.
you later.
Thank
Love you.
All right, awesome. So what is our next skill? What other skill? That was my first one to bring up is sewing. I think that's an important skill for our kids to learn. So we're coming up on a break here in about a minute. What do you think, Alma? What's another skill? I know. Well, let me step back here a second and slow down talking because I'm talking too fast. You moved out you got off the Wasatch Front. You got out of a busy lifestyle, and you moved out. Why did you do that?
It goes back to the way that we felt. We felt very strongly that we needed to be up there. We lived just over the border up in Idaho, and it was something that both my wife and I felt very, very compelled to do. All of our feelings were very deep, and when we got up there, things didn't naturally just fall into place, but miracles occurred, and it worked. I mean, we're where we're supposed to be.
And and honestly, and to go along that same topic, my wife and I have been feeling the same way. And I think this is a calling, something that we're really starting to take seriously. We've got older kids that have the jobs and rent apartments and such, and so it's a little trickier for us than I imagine it was for you with younger kids to decide to move out in a way. And but I can see that as part of a way to teach skills to your kids. Maybe not just. And let me rephrase that a little bit. I want to say maybe more important skills, life skills.
Well, we live in a town of about 260, 270 people.
Yeah.
The whole environment is different, and we really like it. I mean, all of our kids, we can all teach our kids how to work. We can all teach them how to use a rake, how to use a shovel. teach them how to clean their room. And that really doesn't matter where you live to be able to teach those things. But we've moved to an area where things are a little bit, I don't know, we're closer to the land.
Yep. All right, well, here's our break. This segment, of course, is brought to you by Survival Medical, the only first aid kit designed for long-term storage. We'll see you on the other side of the break. All right, we're going to come back in here to off this break here. We appreciate listening to us here on K-Talk AM 630, the Prepper Talk radio show. And today we're talking about skills. And I've got Alma from Vital Domes in studio with me. I really appreciate him being here. And I think he's really an ideal person to talk to about this particular topic. And as we left, we were talking about we talked a little bit about sewing and really about, okay, Alma had moved off the Wasatch Front probably to experience a better quality of life. I mean, and I guess that's all in the eye of the beholder. And what we were talking about, okay, Alma's going to bring up his next skill that he wants his kids to learn, and that we were talking about over the break here. What is that skill?
Well, it's obviously hard work. I mean, I want our kids to learn hard work. But as we were talking in the break, hard work for us is different than hard work for my kids. My kids think that picking up the toy on the ground is hard work, or going out and raking the leaves is hard work. You know, we have a bunch of apple trees. My son, he doesn't want to go pick up the apples.
Well, that's gross.
It's hard work. You know, how can I go pick up 20 apples? I mean, that's work, and it's different.
Yep.
It's different.
And you and I, we have our full-time jobs and all our other pursuits, and we work all day long at those. And then when we come home, we got to do dishes, got to feed the kids and those types of things. And then our kids complain about doing 3 chores, 3 simple chores that take like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and what I'm learning with my wife, my wife is so much better at this than I am. She's patient. I kind of push a little bit, and she lets him learn. She lets our kids learn on their own. And I'm like, come on, let's get this going. Let's do this. And I mean, I'm learning from her. And she has great skills, great parenting skills, and I'm trying to figure it out as I go.
You do as well. I realize that.
It's funny, but being persistent. I think being persistent in trying to teach others skills. I mean, when we talk about skills, we've got to talk about not just what skills we want to possess, but how do we teach them to our children? How do we teach them to others?
Especially in an effective way where they will not shrug it off and say, this is useless.
Yeah, and we need them to be able to understand that they can learn it, that their behaviors can change, but we need to do it in a way that they're not thinking behavior. They're not using the same language that I just used to describe it. It doesn't have to be fun, but it has to be attainable, and they have to be able to see growth. They have to have progress, and they have to be able to look back, and we need to congratulate them and say, look, yeah, picking up the apples, that was hard, but look what you did.
And it may not be fun, but it may be fulfilling and may be enjoyable in that they see the result of their hard work.
Yeah.
It may be truly hard work rather than, I did all this hard work building this level on this video game. Look at all the hard work I went to. Okay, but what did it actually accomplish? What do you have to show for yourself that doesn't exist digitally?
Years ago, I was about 23 years old, I went out and did really hard manual labor. I did industrial plumbing. And we were out in Tigard over by Portland. Okay. And we went out and we were doing 410s doing graveyard shift, because we're on the Tigard campus at the college. And essentially what we did is we took this grit and we would sandblast the inside of the water pipes so they would refurbish them, and then we'd coat them with an EPA safe epoxy, whatever that was. But we'd have to get these 100-pound grit bags. Here I am, this 23-year-old guy that's fairly soft, and
trying to throw a 100-pound bag over your shoulder or whatever.
Oh yeah, I hated it. There were guys there. There's this one guy named Eugene, and he would throw two grit bags on each shoulder, and he'd walk up and just talk to people holding 200 pounds on his shoulders. And I mean, the guy was unreal, and I despised that job, and I'd given him a 3-month commitment, and I hated it. My friend and I was out there with a friend named Ben, and we came back, and my dad was putting sod in the backyard, and we just pulled into town. And what I didn't realize is that job, I mean, it had changed me physically, it changed me mentally. I determined I didn't want to do that for my life. It was harder than I wanted. But we were watching him pull the sod off the pallets, and my friend and I, Ben and I, we started grabbing these pieces of sod, big rolls of sod. They were nothing. I mean, here we're used to working with these big
100-pound bag of silica.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was just wild, and I realized, okay, the thing that I despised gave me pride. I was watching the way my father and my mother were watching us. I mean, they were looking at us like, wow. And what was taking them a long time, we came in and we busted it out in less than an hour.
And everyone's amazed.
Everybody was amazed.
Yeah.
And it was because I had gone through this very difficult experience. And at the end of it, I had physically changed. I had mentally changed. And it was neat. It was a really cool thing. I don't know how that doesn't really have much to do with skills, but it was,
absolutely.
it was
I think
neat to see the progress.
Yeah, and so what is the true definition of hard work? Is it actually going out and doing what you did, lifting 100-pound bags over your shoulder, which not a lot of people can do that, bag after bag for days on it.
You got to be conditioned.
It's very difficult. But so what does hard work really mean? Is it a dedication, or is it actually going out and turning over dirt? Is it going out and planting the garden?
I really think it boils down to attitude. It boils down to what your mental state is. Something is only as hard as you believe it's going to be, or as you make it out to be.
So it's pushing through barriers.
Pushing through barriers.
Yeah. Very cool.
Going back to skills, if I can tangent for a
second. Of course,
second.
absolutely.
So it's about 2.5 years ago. We in our stake, we had an emergency preparedness coordinator. They sent out this little questionnaire, and it was anonymous. And on the back sheet of the questionnaire, they had this big list of skills, 3 columns of skills with little check boxes, and it was, hey, check each box that has a skill next to it. So I went into software development, and I was an entrepreneur, but I was doing a lot of software development. And as I was checking off the boxes, I realized I was only checking off maybe 5 out of 60, 70 check boxes that were available to me. And I realized, even though I was very skillful in writing software and had learned a lot in that realm, if the world goes sideways, I have no skills. I'll be the guy emptying the latrine because I can't do simple things. I couldn't. It asked, can you sew? Can you weld? What tools do you have? What do you have? What are you competent in doing? And I realized back then, 2.5, 3 years ago, I had no skills. I had a ham radio license. I could write software.
And I think that's a big point that I wanted to talk a little bit about. But we've got a caller here in line 3 that's been calling in. So let's go ahead and take this call. Hello, what's your name? You're live on K-Talk. And sorry, let me turn you on again. And then caller's no longer there. So maybe I shouldn't just even take calls today. I'm just so bad at this. So what I wanted to, I guess, kind of expound on there is that skills. Yeah, Wayne, what truly are skills? Is it programming? Is that a skill? All right, here's caller's back again. Let's give this a try. Let me turn you on, and then okay. Hello, caller. What's your name?
Hey, this is Jason.
Hey, Jason. Sorry, I keep messing up the phones here.
Yeah, not a problem. Actually, if you can hold me over to the break, I'd appreciate that. But going back to the skills that you want your kids to have, you guys have just a little bit over all over the board, just a tad bit.
Yeah.
As far as skills, I love what you guys had to say about learning how to learn.
Okay.
What other skills are you wanting to impress upon kids?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to get into. We keep going on tangents here, the different skills. So let me get into my next skill. And actually, hard work was on my list. That was on my. I've got a list of 17 here, and I'm sure I could expound from there. But the next item on my list there, or I'm actually going to skip down a few, because there's no way we'll get to all these. Fishing. I want my kids to learn how to fish, and the reason I want them to learn how to fish is so that they realize, they can actually. They can provide for themselves. They can do something to, in the way of the realm of survival, to feed themselves. And of course, that has to come with learning how to dress the fish, how to clean the fish, gut it, and cook it, and then eat it. So I think that creates a lot of confidence in that, if whatever the situation may be, they have this confidence. They can say, okay, I have these skills that I can rely on. I may not have all the stuff, because we talk a lot about stuff here on Prepper Talk Radio, and prepping is a lot about the stuff. You got to have the supplies, you got to have the food storage, you got to have the tools, but you got to have the skills along with those tools. And that's why one of the reasons we chose to speak about skills today. So fishing, and I think a lot more comes along with fishing than just like the saying says, you feed a man a fish, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So, but it has a lot more to do with, being out in the wilderness and survival and confidence and such.
as we're discussing this and talking about it, you take the fishing, for instance. If you're going to fish, you got to have a skill of knowing how to cook that fish. And if you're going to have the skill of knowing how to prepare and cook that fish, well, you need to have a skill of knowing how to create the heat for it, whether that's a solar, whether it's a fire, whether it's that. And as you're talking about this thought's developing in my mind. We could really take any kind of a starting point and derive other skills that are required for that to be a useful skill.
Oh, and don't forget about drying fish, too. If you don't have a heat source, you know, having a little bit of salt and laying it out into the sun, but keeping away from critters.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
a
lot of different aspects. Just like you say with fire building, that's, of course, on my list as well. Teach the kids how to find tinder, how to find the right woods and media to be able to create a spark or create a coal.
No, I can solve the tinder problem. I can teach that to you in 10 seconds.
All right, go for it.
www.tinder.com.
Wait a second. I don't think we don't want to go there, Jason.
All right, well, hey, just trying to help.
Not that kind of Tinder. My mind. My teenagers' minds are there. That's where they're at. And so but you can see where my mind is. It's on actual Tinder, fire starting material. Let me refer to it that way. So.
Hey, it's all about the spark, man.
I guess that's where it comes from, right? Tinder.
Exactly.
Anyway, so we're talking about fishing. What else? What other skill? I mean, we've got. Time is flying, so we got a lot of skills here.
Something my daughter's been begging me to do, and I don't know anything about it, but we've got an old 1960s Boy Scout book, which is actually worth something, and I'm not talking about valuable skill or money, but she wants to learn how to do lashings.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Rope work, knots. They seem basic to us who are old enough to have gone through a proper Boy Scout troop, but, lashings.
That's true.
I've got, a good trucker's knot.
Absolutely. And, that's one thing that is in pretty much everybody's bug-out bag is some paracord, some kind of cord, some kind of rope. And I'm a big rope guy. I'm a caver, I'm a climber, or at least I used to be a caver and a climber. I don't do it much anymore. But so I'm in love with rope. I love rope, and I love lashing, and I love knots. And it is an important skill that you can't just do an overhand knot and expect that to work in every situation.
I can do a one-handed belay knot. Those are really critical skills to have. If you're on a mountain and you got to come down, you don't want a knot that slips. But what if your hand's injured? I practiced as a Boy Scout doing that with one hand. I can still, to this day, not having done it for 20 years, and do it in less than 10 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. I can as well. I can picture myself holding the rope and doing the knot here with one hand. So, yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right is our kids don't necessarily get exposure to those types of skills, but I think when they do, they eat it up. They love it.
They do.
When we're outside and we just walking around adventuring. That's one thing I love to do with my kids. Let's just go up to the mountains and let's just walk around this adventure. Let's see what we can see and learn what we can. And they love it. They just eat it up.
Another thing my daughter has, for me, asked about a lot is teaching her how to sharpen knives. Problem is, when it comes to knives, I suck.
That is definitely an art.
Yeah, it really is, and knife sharpening and that whole thing, even though I got the Paul Bunyan Award when I was a Boy Scout. But, even something as simple as chopping down a tree. I mean, most people just think hack at it. You don't. Just simple skills. Just little distinctions.
And the thing is, you've got to get out and do it. You can download it on YouTube like The Matrix and put it in your head so that when you're out there next time, then you can put it to use. But yeah, you got to get out there and swing that axe.
And that comes back to hard work.
Yep, absolutely. And all of this is hard work. You get to a point where you're stuck, and do you push past that point and break through and learn that skill with greater proficiency, or do you move on? You give up?
By the way, I really love the question that you had asked Alma in that, what is hard work? And Alma's response was actually pretty good. I was sitting there thinking, you know what? I'm wondering if it is the ability to push through that which you don't think you can do.
Okay. Yeah.
When it comes down to it.
Great point.
Well, there are a lot of stories out there where I'll just say it. It's actually in the Book of Mormon. It's one of my favorite things where the burdens that are laid on their backs as they're doing it were really heavy. They were really, really hard. But as they continued and as they asked for external guidance and external help, they weren't solved. They weren't delivered out of their problems. Their burdens or the hard work that they were doing was made light. Well, I think that's the way it should be. I mean that's where the greatest growth comes from. It's like when I was talking about coming back after working with the grit bags and working with the big
Oh,
pipes
guys, we can't have that going on the air. That's not good.
Yeah, we know your position. We know your position.
Well,
there,
hold
Jason.
on. No, wait. Stop. Hold on.
You know, I
Back
have
up here
control
just a
here,
second.
Jason. I can push this
It's
button.
the principle. It's the principle that's important here, and the principle is that as you push through whatever outside influences you rely on to help you get through, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your God, whether it's your children, whatever your have to is, whatever your want to is, and wherever your desires sit, whatever that source is that helps you continue and push through, the burdens that are on your shoulders become light. They become easier to deal with. If we were thrown...
And they actually may go a little further. They become enjoyable.
Well, and you can go beyond that. Not only do they become enjoyable, they become the foundation for the next things.
I see that, yeah.
If we look at this life as an actual progression, okay, I learned how to write software. Well, I didn't learn how to write software until I learned how to play guitar. And I got my first computer because I wanted to record myself and hear how I sounded so I could improve the guitar playing. Well, fell in love with writing software. From software, I met my wife, through playing guitar and software, and I was able to support my family. I was able to build on that, and now all of a sudden I'm building tents. And the skills that I have from building tents, well, in a survival scenario, I know how to do things that just most other people don't know how to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And loving the conversation. Thank you guys for your input and your comments. This segment, and of course all of our segments right now, are brought to you by Survival Medical, survival-medical.com, the only first aid kit tougher than nature. We'll see you on the other side of the break. All right, coming on back from the break here. Thanks for joining us here on Prepper Talk Radio. I'm Shane of PreparedGuide.com. Got Jason on the phone still. He always has great comments. And I've got Alma here in studio from Journey Tents as well, right? Journey Tents is another I guess it's a cabin tent. That's really what it is. And then, of course, Vital Domes as well, the dome tents you see at PrepperCon. So, of course, our sponsor is Survival Medical, survival-medical.com. You can see them at the Provo Sam's Club right now for the next few days. And then starting on Thursday in South Jordan.
You're not on the air.
Oh, sorry. I didn't turn my... That's my bad. Thanks, Jason, for doing that.
Not a problem.
I didn't push my button hard enough. That's me being the amateur. So let me start over again. We're here back in the studio with Alma and with Jason, talking about skills. Survival Medical is our sponsor. You can find them in the Sam's Club in Provo right now and in South Jordan here on Thursday. And let's get back at it.
Can I just interject really quick?
Of course.
I love the fact that when you press the button, it didn't turn on, because that brings up something else that I think is a miss and a lost skill.
Perfect.
Is a lot of times right now, like if one of my, I have my daughter, my oldest daughter.
Are you talking about observation?
Well,
Me not observing that button was...
It's not that, but that is a good skill too. But the ability to recover, to actually do something wrong, recover,
trip, fall,
and
get up.
Yeah, so many of us we get so filled with this I don't know what the word is, pride, where we become so embarrassed because we do something wrong.
We don't try again.
We don't try again, or we stumble over ourselves because of it. Well, I don't know a single person on the face of this earth that is perfect and does everything exactly the way that it should be done. Well, I mean, I mess up all the time. I mean, on a daily basis. But if that were the thing that stopped me from being able to continue and move forward, I become paralyzed and I can't do anything. And I've watched it in my own children. They'll try something. They expect to be able to do it perfect the first time.
Yeah.
Because
I
they're
can't
watching
do this.
Yeah, they're watching
Yeah.
their older sibling who's able to do it. Tying shoes.
Exactly.
I want my kids. One of the skills I want for my kids. My two oldest can tie their shoes. My 7-year-old, he can do them, but he doesn't want to do them.
He doesn't do very well.
He doesn't do very
That
well.
always comes unto it, yeah.
And he compares himself to his older sister. Hey, you know what? She does it. Look how well she does. And something as simple as tying shoes. That's a phase of life that we're in, though. With our kids.
I have to interject on
Go ahead,
that
Jason.
one real quick. The thing is one of the things, and this comes down to it's more of a psychological perspective, and that is simply this. When a person gets frustrated, it's very difficult because they're locked into a pattern of thinking, and they don't have the vision outside of that thinking that is the solution. And so when frustration sets in, there's a tendency within human beings to stay stuck within that tendency, and the mind wants to be right, so it will create the validation for that rightness, and it's the ability to interrupt that.
So you're saying that the skill we need to teach our kids is to be able to think for themselves.
Yes, and and self-awareness, to be able to observe, okay, I'm frustrated here. My skill set right now is diminished as a result of the choices, but my choices right now are born out of the frustration. So how do I get out of the frustration?
Yeah, what's the best way to teach that?
Yeah, how do I push through that? And going back for just a moment, though, as far as, wanting and needing things hard, we don't want the NSA hearing that, because we don't want politicians coming in and saying, okay, let's get more draconian laws.
You and your perspective, Jason, we just absolutely love it. That's. But yeah, my question is, okay, how do we teach this to our kids? How do we teach them to push through that? I mean, I think the obvious answer is to give them little small experiences where they do something that's maybe not that hard, but it's hard to them, and then they break through and like, hey, I was able to do that, great, and then they continue to move on.
Well, and it's like we can't force them, we can't push them.
Yeah.
The analogy,
especially
in Scouts,
my kids.
Yeah, the analogy in Scouts was you can't push a rope, you have to pull it. And you gotta coax your kids along. I mean, what are the correct words for this? Patience and long suffering. I mean, we've got to do it. We've got to do it with love. We've got to be able to help our children with love. Whether it's overcoming an obstacle, whether it's overcoming something that they thought they could do, or they think they should be able to just adopt and be able to do it fast, but they can't.
Well, I think most kids think they're indestructible, they're invincible, they know everything.
Yeah, I just don't want my kids to grow up as part of the snowflake generation.
Yeah,
I don't want
absolutely.
them to melt. As soon as something happens that isn't exactly
difficult.
perfect, I don't want them to melt. I want them to have some well, basically what I've learned to have over my life. Things don't go the way you want them to. People don't like you all the time.
It takes time. There's patience involved.
Yeah, I don't do everything right. I mess up, but I can't always melt. I can't just give up and quit. And I want more than anything, I want my children to learn that, because if they can learn that, that becomes a foundation they can build any skill set. I mean, you go back to your fishing. You don't throw the hook in the first time and expect a fish to jump on it. You've got to learn.
Yep.
And if you melt on that first one, you'll never become proficient at fishing. Never become proficient at starting a fire.
And then when you catch that first one, you get a glimpse of and realize, okay, this takes a little more than I thought. This isn't as easy as I thought. I probably need to have more patience and try new lures and try different techniques and move to a different new spot and work through the different problems there may be.
And if you give them one or two successes and let them experience it, I've watched this with my own son. He's brilliant, and he learns so rapidly. I can teach him a principle, and he'll expound on it naturally. We got him a little motorbike. He became he was really timid as he was driving around the yard. Really timid when he first got on it.
That's scary.
Yeah. Well, 30 minutes later, he wasn't as timid. 4 hours later, the guy was riding like a pro, and now he's just amazing.
Has he fallen off and gotten hurt?
Has not.
Not yet, huh?
Well, I take that back. He has, but he got right back up. I mean, even when we were playing catch, and I pelted him right smack dab in the middle of the face, and I felt really bad. But he shrugged it off. A tear came, but he wiped it away, and he was like, "Let's keep going." And he wanted to do grounders next, and the grounder popped up and hit him. And okay, well, let's go back. And I loved it. He pushed his way through.
And he's learning the little nuances of, okay, I'm going to move my face out of the way this time.
And I'm not teaching those to him.
Right, he's learning for himself.
He's learning for himself, but I'm giving him an environment that and a series of experiences that he can learn, and he can develop those skills.
Yeah, that's great. Great perspective there. All right, let's pick a...
Can I dovetail on that?
Sorry, Jason, go ahead. I had your volume down. What were you saying?
Yeah, no problem. Just let me dovetail on that. When I notice, and it's been my observation, and so it's only my experience, that when a child is really frustrated and they're locked in that thinking, two things. One, stopping the child and having them take a deep breath. That's powerful. It really does an amazing job. And the second thing is try and give them a little small success in there so they can come to their own conclusion. That's the trick. But give them a little bit of a success. And you guys kind of covered that a little bit in that, you need to give them a little bit of a success. That prompts and fuels that enthusiasm. And enthusiasm, the root word is enthusos, which is Greek for energy of God. When you instill that enthusiasm, then all of a sudden that energy shifts from frustration to exploration, curiosity.
Yeah, great comment. Great comment.
And expounding on that, we have to fill our children with, what's the right word? We need to believe in them. We need to fill them with confidence, and they're not going to just be naturally confident. I mean, some kids are, but most people aren't naturally confident. We have to give them the confidence. That's something I love about my parents. My parents believe in me. My parents support me. My parents, they are, I mean, they're amazing. My father and I, we're best friends. We built this relationship when I was 14 years old. He and I we moved up from Washington to Utah, and we went through a difficult time where we were trying to sell the house there, and my mother was trying to sell the house. We were here. My dad had started school, going back to get his master's in computer science, and I got to spend months with my dad. And we bonded, and we created this relationship that was absolutely incredible. Because of that relationship, which is still intact today, I cherish it. I have, between my father, my mother, and now with my wife, and we've been married 13 years, but we dated for 2 years. I have a support system behind me that instills confidence in me. My wife is absolutely incredible at this. She's when I'm laying down on the floor crying, she's saying, "You can pick yourself back up. You can do this. I've seen you do harder things than this."
And now that looking back to your relationship with your father, now you know what you want with your kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
My dad and I were talking about this just the other day. I want to be a daddy to my kids. Not dad, not a father. I want to be daddy.
Not the best friend.
No,
yeah.
And daddy isn't. Yeah, he's not your best friend. He's a trusted advisor in your life. I want to be trusted of my kids when they're going to go through really hard things. They are as they're trying to acquire these skills. They're going to skin their knees. They're going to fall. They're going to get bloody noses. They're going to have emotional catastrophes in their life. We don't know what's coming for them. They're going to make poor decisions. I want to be the kind of father that they come and they know that no matter what happens in their lives, I'm there. I will champion them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm there. I can be their confidant. And my wife is amazing at this. My father's that way for me. My mother's that way for me. I want to be like my wife, and I want to be like my dad. My father-in-law, he's the same way. I mean, he's incredible.
And let's hope that our kids, feel the same way about us that way as well.
Those are skills I'm trying to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's try and get a few more skills in here before we're out of time almost here.
Nunchuck skills.
Nunchuck skills,
star throwing
martial arts skills.
Martial arts.
Absolutely. And the reason I want to talk more about these skills is, I think you and I, we can look back and we can see, okay, this skill that I learned for computer programming, yeah, it's a valuable skill to earn an income, but what about a survival skill? I mean, and that's really kind of where I'm trying to focus a little bit on some survival skills that take us back maybe before our time to where our ancestors and our progenitors, they used every single day, not just, we're going to go and practice this skill on a weekend, but this is something they used every single day. What are some of those skills that you can see?
You got to have problem-solving skills. I mean,
that's kind of gone away with the internet.
It has.
And with YouTube and such.
Well, yeah, what did I do? I went to YouTube to learn how to sew instead of just sitting down at the sewing machine.
Figured out.
Yeah, look at the manual. Oh, here's how I thread it, and then I start figuring it out. Having a mentor is fantastic, but having the I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And kind of what I'm looking back is, gardening. That seems like a simple skill, but it takes a lot of practice.
It takes a lot of practice
to be able to grow a crop, and bring in the harvest and actually have enough to eat, or like my carrots. My carrots are better this year than they were last year, but they're still not what they should be, and I'm still trying to figure that out. Why?
We moved up into a farming community, as you're talking about that. I'm one who I love having food storage. That's my that's my safety net.
It's your warm blanket.
It is my warm blanket.
Yeah.
Up in the farming community, these guys, I mean, they can put things in the ground and they can get a yield out of it that I can't even hope to get.
Yeah.
And it's, they've been doing it for generations. But that's a whole different skill set. I mean, I listen to the conversations around the neighborhood and the conversations that they have concerning those things of growing, and that it's a whole different skill set. It's amazing. It's amazing what they can do up there.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of practice, a lot of patience. What about, here's one I love, orienteering. Being able to
Navigate.
to take a compass, and the wonder and the amazement of that needle being able to always point north. I mean, that, as a young scout, that was just something that just amazed me. We've got a caller here in line 5. Let's go ahead and bring him on here and see what they have to say. Yeah, what's your name? Hello, you there?
Hi.
Yes.
I am here, sir.
Yes, what's your name?
My name's Ed.
Yes, Ed. We've got about a minute left. What have you got for us?
I just have a quick question. Do you guys have a website?
We do. It is in the works. It's PrepperTalkRadio.com. Right now it's PrepperTalkRadio.net, but we were able to buy .com. So, and I've also got PreparedGuy.com. There's PrepperCon.com. Of course, Vital Domes, Journey Tents, and of course we're also on Facebook, and we video record this and we put it on our YouTube channel. So we've got PrepperCon TV on YouTube, as well as Prepper Talk Radio on YouTube. And so we got a lot of different places. Just, type in Prepper Talk, type in Prepared Guy, and we're usually going to come up, and you can get more content there. Perfect lead into our... thanks, everybody, for your calls. Appreciate it joining us today. We are, of course, brought to you by Survival Medical, survival-medical.com. The only first aid kit tougher than nature. We sure appreciate your support there, John, with the show. And thank you, Alma, for coming on with us. Great conversation. Wish we had more time. And we'll see you guys next week.